The Leader of the Opposition.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Why is the government willing to spend $78 million on taxpayer-funded bonuses for NBN executives, management and staff, but has not been willing to extend JobKeeper payments beyond March to save the jobs of Australian workers who still depend on it in sectors such as tourism, live music and the arts?
The Prime Minister has the call.
Mr Speaker, I can advise the Leader of the Opposition that the Assistant Minister of the Prime Minister announced a review of performance bonus arrangements underway for SES and equivalent employees in the Commonwealth Public Service in November of last year, Mr Speaker. And in the meantime, while that review is ongoing, the expectation is that agencies will, with access to bonuses, exercise restraint to the furthest possible extent, Mr Speaker, and that Minister Birmingham wrote to the NBN last year reiterating those expectations. Now, Mr Speaker, I'm asked more broadly about the government's program of providing unprecedented support to Australian workers during the time of the greatest economic crisis this country has faced since the Great Depression. Mr Speaker, our government put in place a targeted, extensive program using existing delivery methods that has resulted in one of the most successful economic policies this country has ever seen at a time of its greatest need. Now, Mr Speaker, for it to be targeted, proportionate and to have a clear exit strategy so it comes into place as, Mr Speaker, the economy gets back up on its feet. And, Mr Speaker, the opposition, when it comes to JobKeeper, they've had a bet each way the whole way, as they do on everything, Mr Speaker. They say they support it, they say it should be temporary,
Prime Minister,
and when you seek...
The Leader of the Opposition on a point of order. Treasurer will cease interjecting. The Leader of the Opposition has the call.
Speaker, while irony applies to questions rather than answers, my point of order goes to relevance. The Prime Minister was asked about NBN getting $78 million of taxpayer funds for the executives and at the same time not being prepared to extend JobKeeper in sectors like tourism, live music and the arts. That's what the question went to. It went nothing to do with the Labor Party or alternative views. It was a very clear question.
I'll call the Prime Minister. That's a members on my left or a member on my left. The Prime Minister is entitled to compare and contrast, which I think he's done, but I think the Leader of the Opposition makes a fair point about the other parts of the question. The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition always gets very anxious when I talk about his each-way bets, Mr Speaker. But on the point that he raises...
The Prime Minister resume his seat. Manager of Opposition Business. Members on my right, the Manager of Opposition Business.
On the standing order requiring members to be addressed by their title, the Prime Minister just referred to each-way bets and referred to the Leader of the Opposition when the only person who has been arguing both sides of the case on wage subsidies was the Prime Minister who said wage subsidies were dangerous, was the Prime Minister who argued against wage subsidies here on the floor in private meetings and now wants to claim that it was somehow his idea.
The Prime Minister has the call.
I seem to have deeply offended the precious sensitivities of the Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister will just come to the question.
Before we get back here on Monday, Mr Speaker, they can recuperate over the weekend.
Prime Minister will come back to the question.
Mr Speaker, the JobKeeper program has been the lifesaver for Australians across the course of this pandemic. As those opposite would know, because we, Mr Speaker, have said on numerous occasions that those sectors that continue to be subject to very real challenges because of the nature of border closures internationally, whether it's in the travel agent sector or the aviation sector, these sectors, Mr Speaker, they're under close consideration by the government as we look to the months ahead, as we continue to transition the various programs of support that we have in place. Those opposite might want to undermine the confidence of Australians during the pandemic, Mr Speaker. We are building that confidence, and that's why over 50,000 jobs for full-time employees were created in January. That's why 180,000 jobs were created after the first transition of JobKeeper, Mr Speaker. Our policies are working. They're putting people back into work, Mr Speaker. The Labor Party continues to play pandemic politics.